Hi everybody. Today I'll be walking through this application FHIR AI on OpenAPI Chain. So through this application, what we're trying to accomplish is how can we ask question to any of the chosen FHIR server in a natural language way. The application would look something like this. The OpenAI API key will be inputting and the FHIR API base URL will be entering. This requires unauthenticated access, and then we select which API we want the API to talk to, and then give the input in a natural language way. So once we give the input, it will provide the answer in a natural language. It will generate in a natural language way. So for this, some of the key technologies which we're using is first is OpenAI. So if you have used ChatGPT or any of the applications powered by OpenAI, so we are going to use the APIs of OpenAI. And the second thing which we're going to use is called LangChain. So LangChain enables to construct a chain by providing the questions relevant. So what we are trying to do is we are trying to load this API docs. So Open API specifications is nothing but it is a standard which is set where the HTTP APIs, the FHIRs, HTTP APIs are documented in a very broad way. So we have the Open APIs 3.0.1 specification. So this is that specification document taken from fhir.org. So this particular document we are trying to load through LangChain and then going to call the OpenAI API internally to our APIs, FHIR APIs. So that will return the response in a natural language way. So this is what we are going to accomplish. And then one more technology which we use to build this UI is Streamlit. So Streamlit is pretty much a Python framework which has a lot of ready-made components which we can use. So I have used one such component to build this, like say it's a text input or like button or any kind of components we can directly use from Streamlit. So now I'll go ahead and set up the repo. So I've already cloned and kept the repo. So the first thing what we need to do is like Docker compose up. So what this will do is, it'll run the container. So once it runs the container, we should check whether it's able to call the API or not. So I'm going to Postman and I'm entering this URL. Okay, it's not in this space. Okay, now I'm hitting this localhost URL. So here the FHIR server is running locally and I'm trying to call the API endpoint and it is giving me the result. So this is what if we need to try running a local FHIR server and then wanted to ask a natural language query to that particular local server, you can follow the instructions which are given in the README to set it up. It's pretty straightforward. So after cloning, if we have the Docker, we can directly jump it up. And I've also loaded some sample data because we are trying to do a query. So this query, this sorry, so this script loads like up to 5 patient records, which we can query using natural language way. Then this we can also check if the uh, patient data is loaded successfully. So now what I'll do is now since the FHIR server is running, now I'll go ahead and run the Streamlit, the front-end application. So to run the front-end application, I've already installed the requirement. If you've not installed, just run this command, which will install all the requirements which are needed. So requirements is nothing but LangChain, OpenAI, and Streamlit. So I'm copy pasting this. So now this has spinned off the Streamlit application. So to code the Streamlit application, I did nothing but if you go to the source and Streamlit folder, in the source there's something called main.py. Here I'm importing the Streamlit library and then I'm trying to use the existing components. Say it sets the sidebar or like it sets the title and all those is being set. And what I'm doing, the main function, what it does is it tries to build a chain, OpenAI chain using LangChain. So if we see here, OpenAPI endpoint chain from API operation. So if I go to paths and methods, what it does is it loads the specifications from the OpenAPI 3.0 specifications, what I've shown some time back. So after loading that, it is trying to define the path. So first, let me go and showcase how it works. So I'm pasting my OpenAI key, and then I'm pasting my server endpoint. So till R4, I'm copying. This is my endpoint and this is my API. I'm clicking on configure. So after I click on configure, what happens is it tries to load this configuration. So this configuration is somewhere like 6 to 7 MB file. So it takes some time to load the configuration. So after loading the configuration, the LangChain has the data on what are the API endpoints available and what are the details about it. So if I go ahead and show, it has all the description. Say if it's insurance plan, what is the name, what is the description, and it has all the paths also. Say if I want to like patient detail, if I want to get, so it will have slash patient and what is the endpoint path and what kind of input we can give. All the details are included in this file. So that is the file I'm loading for through LangChain for OpenAI to have a context. Now I go ahead. Now I go ahead and select one particular path. I'll go for patient slash ID. Uh, so after I select, it takes time to load what are the endpoints which are there, like what are the methods which are there, get, put, post. So for that particular endpoint, what are the methods which are available? It will try to load that, and it shows here get, put, post, delete, patch. So currently it's get. So I'm going to ask like tell the tell which city the patient with ID1 from, or something like that if I ask. So what this is doing now is, because it has read the OpenAI specification, we have loaded the OpenAI specification as a context for the AI, it understands the query and it tries to form a input or form a request for this API, a patient slash ID API with ID1, and then it sends it as a request and then tries to return a response. So that is what is happening here. Now it's running the query. So it says like the patient with ID1 is from city of so and so. So now if we go, I have like activated the verbose, which prints like what all things are happening behind the scenes. So so as I mentioned, LangChain is helping to build a chain, right? So here, if we see your helpful AI assistant, so this is the prompt which you have given, and then this is the instruction which I asked: tell which city the patient with ID1 from. And then now, based on the information, it is trying to find the first information, that is the patient with ID1, and then it tries to send the query. And then after it receives the API response, from the response, it tries to extract the information which is required to answer the query. And then it forms an answer, and then it gives that the patient with ID1 is from the city of so and so. So this is how this entire chaining works. So it chains multiple prompts, and then based on whatever the requirement we have posted, it tries to achieve that end goal. Um, so now we have seen an example with the um, running this query with the local FHIR server. If we need to run with any server which is running on cloud, so let's take an example from InterSystems. So InterSystems offer like sample cloud if we need to set it up. So if you have logged in into InterSystems learning portal, you should be able to launch a learning FHIR server. That should be sufficient enough to try out this example in a cloud server. So I have done something similar. So it will give a credentials like this, which will be valid for around 1 week. Um, so after we get this credential, what we need to do is, so to get those, after getting the credentials, if we follow the step 1, step 2, and step 3, we'll be getting the endpoint, or even I think step 2 should be sufficient enough. So we'll be getting the endpoint, which should be enough for us to try out this application. So I've got such endpoint, and that endpoint, um, so this is my endpoint which I'm using. So this health share FHIR server slash FHIR slash R4. So this is nothing but I'm defining that. Click this is the endpoint which I'm defining and creating. So this document should be very straightforward, and it should not take like more than 10 minutes to set up this particular endpoint. So after setting up that endpoint, what we can do is we can go back to the application, and if we paste that endpoint, we are trying to change the server now. After changing the server, let the OpenAI key be. Now it is trying to load again the information. So the specification can also be cached, so that we reduce like the loading time, or like we can make the performance better. So now if the same question is being asked for the patient from a different server, right? It tries to give out that information. So this is how we can now run, or like we can now ask any query in a natural language way to any FHIR server using OpenAI. Also, I have hosted this Streamlit front-end application in a cloud. So if you go to this particular URL, the application would be running. You can paste your OpenAI API key and then the base URL, and if you configure and try out, it should work. Yeah, and also I've added some useful resources in the GitHub repo section. You can go through that. Please feel free to add if there are any questions in the comment section. Thank you very much.